Boom! According to that, I am live. Wait a minute, I've just realized, is my sound actually set up correctly? It's taking from the webcam at the moment. Let me just switch this to the good microphone. That should be better sound. The camera is right. Let's just put that over there. And yeah, welcome. This is Tokyo Tonight. I got distracted actually. I was chasing a squirrel, not the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces handing out free food to needy families, as Dan H was suggesting, but rather there was actually a fire at Naha Airport involving a Boeing 777, which I thought, oh, another Boeing issue. But it turns out that it was an oil leak on the engine, which they fixed and the flight took off. And then I looked down and I realized that, oh, I'm supposed to be starting the stream now. So here I am. Here are all of you. I've already got so many people. As soon as I actually set up the stream, I actually set up a stream the other day, like right before. And of course, you don't get a notification unless I set up the stream at least like 30, 40 minutes in advance, ideally an hour. So I set it up about 3 hours or 2 hours in advance. And straight away, DJ Sunnyside Up first. Well done. Yeah, you are indeed very fast. He says Skibbity Toilet. I don't get that meme. I love Little Big and the song Skibbity and the video Skibbity. I don't know if that has anything to do with the meme, but yeah. Anyway, spooky popping up in places there, but yeah, super fast. So good to see you, DJ Sunnyside Up. If indeed you've actually made it to the actual live streaming time, I presume you'll get here. Seb, yo, great to see you. We've got Lara, so ready. We've got everybody rocking in here. We've got Sadiq saying hello to me, saying hello to everybody, saying hello to Lara. We've got Dan H wondering how many squirrels would it take to produce a block of butter. By the way, lightning and thunder. That's the tropical storm that was the typhoon number 10, Typhoon Shanshan, which sounds like a panda name, by the way. So whenever I hear, like, in Japanese news just calls it Typhoon number 10. Every year there's like typhoons, and you can tell how many typhoons they were and what number it was, and you don't have to have a negative association when they name a typhoon after your mum or anything like that. But yeah, this time the English-speaking media, it's called Shanshan for some reason, which to me sounds like a panda name. They're always like Chinese, so they're always Ling Ling or Pei Pei or Xi Xi or Xi Jinping. This time it's Shanshan, which I don't know. The imagery of typhoons saying that you know, slow. There's a headline earlier this evening. What is it? Slow moving tropical depression Shanshan is moving towards Japan or something. And I have an image when I hear Shanshan, I think of it as a, you know, as a depressed panda with a tropical depression or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, that's what you can hear outside at the moment. There's lightning, there's thunder, but yeah, the full-on typhoon that everyone was expecting, definitely very bad down in Kyushu and down that ways, but up in Tokyo we've had a ton of rain. I mean, again, our rain drainage systems couldn't really handle the volume of rain that we've had. We've had a few cases again, which there's coverage of all week. It's just been non-stop typhoon, and even in Tokyo, the rain that we've gotten from it coming off the ocean is beyond the volumes that our flood and extreme rain prevention systems have been built for. So, you know, somebody described it as unimaginable, and obviously we have to readjust our imaginations with climate change. That is a thing. Oh, this, and because I'm checking latest comments, Bluetooth check. I hope the sound didn't cut out, because yes, I totally forgot to do that before the stream. But anyway, did it cut out? I see people laughing. Oh no, did it cut out? Tell me if it cut out. Anyway, I did just remember, but thank you for that. Anyway, we've got lightning, we've got thunder, we have AC/DC. The stream is now on. Tell me if my sound cut out there for a moment. It shouldn't cut out anymore. Hopefully it should be working now. What else have we got in here? So how many squirrels does it take to make a block of butter? Depends on how big the squirrels and whether their airplane is on fire and what time of the week it is, the humidity, you know, so many factors with the squirrels. I could talk for hours about how many squirrels it would take to make a block of butter, but we ain't got no time for that. We do have topics this week to cover. Apparently, Dan H, he's got a squirrel for me that I couldn't find anything about, but this sounds lovely. The Japan Self-Defense Forces, specifically the Army, the Ground Self-Defense Forces, they are going poor families in the North's children's cafeterias. Well, apparently they've set up facilities to provide free food to low-income families. It's lovely, but at the same time, you know, should you need the army for that? I mean, you got city councils and governments and so on that are supposed to be taking care of all of that. But regardless, I'm just going to put that down there a little bit. Regardless, good to see them doing that. Coming from an army family myself, army's kind of like civil defense, sort of natural disasters last line. They've been doing this in the Noto Peninsula where they had that earthquake. The fact that they'd just be providing it for the fact that there are people in need of food assistance seems to me to be the wrong tool, but good PR for them and good on them for doing that. Presumably they have spare rations and so on that they're contributing to this, but highlights, at the same time it kind of highlights other problems. Demaster, great to see you. Long time no see, nice to see you there in the comments. Masashi Mark, glad that you can make it to a live stream. Good to have you in here. Black Tingu, our man from Athens, good to have you in here. Hello, Greece. Thank you, Dan H, for sending me the readable link. Didn't get to it in time, but Preemptive Squirrel, appreciate that. Seb already said hello. We've got Sainted Sir from NYC, 9:30 a.m. Good to have you, NYC, 9:30 a.m. in here. We've got Eder in from Denmark. Boom, indeed. Bluetooth check, which I had not done. So hopefully the sound hadn't had the sound cut out. I'm seeing laughing, diabolical laughter here in the chat. So maybe it did. Stuff happens. Ninja Monkey, great to see you. And yeah, everybody, of course, especially if you're outside of Japan and planning to travel to Japan, I can't really give advice on like traveling to Japan and booking hotels and doing tours because I freaking live here. Ninja Monkey's channel is specialized in helping you sort of plan for your Japan trips, and he's got very good information. So as always, great to have you in the chat, Ninja Monkey, and do appreciate what you do because I can't do it. So everybody go subscribe to Ninja Monkey. This is the latest comment I've got highlighted, so it might just be everyone's being quiet. But yeah, in that case, I guess we can proceed. One thing, I actually figured something out. My Action 3D camera thing, this fella, from about last month, there was a firmware update that I can make this a USB camera. And that actually has amazing resolution. It's got a nice big sensor in it. So for the after party, hang around because I can actually, because this is 360, it takes a super wide angle. I can actually use a combination of this camera I'm using right now, and which I can mount on my mixer, and this to be able to show you what I'm doing and my face at the same time. I experimented with this last night. I didn't go live with it, but all going well. As you know, technical things always go super well with this sort of thing. I should be able to do a really, really cool after party, which you can join me for. Also, I've spent the last 2 days. I figured out how to move. I could only get my Apple streaming music onto my iPad for the after party, which was about 1,000 tracks, but I have 8,000 more tracks, which again, I was experimenting. Once I got them all onto my iPad for the first time the other day, I was experimenting with playing them all, and then I realized I had so much crap. So I've spent the last 2 days listening to just about every track that at least that I'm not sure about, and filtering out the tracks that I think are crap that I would never mix in a DJ set, which amounted to about 4,000. I deleted about 4,000 tracks. The result is I now have about 5,000 tracks that I think are actually really good that I would happily play any one of. And I won't be like the other night when I was going through and discovering that it was actually hard to find tracks I wanted to play because there was so much stuff like cluttered in with it. So I've decluttered the iPad, so it should be a really good after party. I'm going to play some of my own music, of course, but hang around for that. Yeah, RIP to Fat Man Scoop. I don't know who Fat Man Scoop is. I probably should. I do not, but RIP to him indeed, or her, or she, or it. What can you do? Not that old either. Wow, okay, so someone's passed away. And doing what he loved. Well, glad to hear that. And with that, let's dive into the topics. I hope you're all doing well, by the way. If you're in Japan, I hope that you're okay with the typhoon this week, particularly if you're in Kyushu ways. But yeah, it's that getting into that time, getting into typhoon season at the moment. It's kind of funny. We didn't have much of a rainy season, but we're definitely having what feels like a rainy season. We've had a lot of rain in the summer. And it's not cooling things off that much. I went for a run yesterday thinking it'd be nice with the typhoon cooling things off. But when I went out, it got sunny and it got super hot, like sauna hot. And I kind of take pride that no matter how far I run, I never give up in the middle of a run. But I went for a long run. I was running along the Sumida River, and it was so hot. And once I got to 8K, and I sort of realized I was sort of exploring along a route or along the river I'd never tried before. And I looked at my map and I realized that to run back, there was no short way back to loop around. I had to run back the way that I came, which meant it was going to be a 16K run. And I was like heat exhausted. And because I was running along the river, there were no vending machines. So there was no drinks around for me to get. And I needed to get a drink and cool off. So I just decided to stop the run at 8K. I went and got a drink. I walked about 2K to the nearest train station. I got a train home. So yeah, interesting. It's not that cool at the moment. The humidity is extreme. Last night, my little clock here said that the humidity was 85%. I actually put on the dehumidifier in the end. So yeah, he was that iconic hype man for DJ 90s hip hop. Remember that song "Drop" by Timbaland? Probably if I play it, I'll probably remember. I don't want to pretend when I'm not exactly sure and say, oh, I remember. But yeah. Anyway, sad to hear that. And with that, let's get into the topics. It is 10:42 p.m. Japan Standard Time. Thanks always for keeping me company. In fact, let me just do one quick thing here. Good. So boom. The story about the ANA plane that does exist. I just posted it. Yeah, I thought that maybe it was another Boeing issue and that everyone would be stuck in Okinawa. Turns out they weren't. They actually were able to take off not long after. But yeah, the number one place I'd probably want to be stranded due to a Boeing issue would be the ISS, and the second place would probably be Okinawa. So Boeing providing free extended vacations for people, but it turns out no, they actually took off after 3 hours. So it wasn't really a Boeing problem. It was a rare ANA maintenance issue, but glad that they got that away. Oh yeah, there's a clip of video here of the smoke plane emitting smoke from the gate. Turns out there was an oil leak on the engine, which apparently they were able to sort out, so not as bad as it looked. Apparently yesterday, was it yesterday or today, was Bosai no Hi. It was Safety Awareness Week. The 1st of September is Disaster Safety Awareness Week. And with that, Paprika Girl, an institution on Twitter, again pointed out, do a checklist. Make sure that you have a plan for when the world explodes. I guess hold your breath. Make sure the family plan is communicated to all members and go through your just-in-case supplies. And I must admit, going through this list, even me looking at this, it was, if I do this, it crops out the one on the side. This is actually a better view. It's kind of hard to make out, but I'll read it out. You should have a printed map, a list of addresses, contacts, current phone, and family members. Certainly, I learned that the mobile phone network, when we had the Great East Japan quake, the mobile phone network did not survive it. So, had to go into old-fashioned landlines, at least from work, and had to, if your batteries run out, you don't want to. You want to make sure that you have access to important phone numbers outside, so you need them written down physically somewhere. Physical maps is a good idea that hadn't occurred to me. I've got, or at least make sure you know how to walk home from where you are, which is particularly if you've got, I know people who walked over 11 hours, so definitely a good idea if you are in Tokyo to know how to walk home from where you might be during the day, particularly from work or something. Just lifting my chair up, it's sinking down a little bit. And current photos of family members, that hadn't really occurred to me. Everything you take is digital nowadays, but sure, I can imagine if you've got like missing people or whatever, kind of morbid to think about, but good to remember, good to have current photos that you can use. Personal information, make sure that you know where your insurance cards, passports, and so on are, have batteries, solar charge items, flashlights, radios. I think I've got all that stuff. Safety items such as matches, rope, scissors, gloves, helmets. Don't have helmets at work. We all have helmets and gloves at home. Yeah, we could probably improvise that, but yeah. A high ground countryside safe house for backup location. Do not have, I wish I had a countryside safe house for backup location, although it is notable when you go on trips, it is something I pay attention to. If I go near the beach or whatever, they normally signpost evacuation routes for tsunamis, how to get up to appropriate heights, 20 meters, 30 meters. Places like Shizuoka, which have a very high tsunami risk down there, they'll actually have the roads all marked that if there's a tsunami, which down there is a super high risk, how to get up 20 meters, 30 meters. Dry foods, canned foods and water. I've got a ton of that. Yes, we keep a lot of stock, which we rotate, something we started doing after the Great East Japan earthquake. Medical supplies and emergency amenities. Just thinking, I probably don't have so many of those. Emergency blankets, sleeping bags, ground sheets, and tent. Again, should have that. The lad is not into camping, and yeah, I used to have a tent and all that stuff, and I don't know what happened. I think on a house move, I probably threw them away. So, good reminder that probably could use other stuff anyway. Japan bringing back gas station map guides back again. Yeah, that'd be nice. Convenience stores as well. At least last I checked, sold maps, but the last I checked was about 15 years ago. So, yeah, Lara's lucky you work in the same area. Oh yeah, DJ Sunny Side Up, of course. Your area, you want to be very careful of tsunamis and so on as well, and make sure you've got all that, and make sure you've got all the supplies that you need. Good that your daughter loves the outdoors. In Tokyo, it's kind of understandable, I guess, having a teenager boy. Not, geez, the outdoors here is getting him to the supermarket. So yeah, your bug out vehicle ready. Wow. Okay, so Mad Max, DJ Sunny Side Up, all set to go. Interesting down here because we've had this sort of mega floods and rain in Tokyo, just that have been overwhelming the drainage system in Tokyo. Japan, expecting with climate change these extreme storms, they invested in the world's biggest underground sort of drainage system to be able to take, because Tokyo is actually, it's not exactly Venice, but it is a city of rivers. In fact, all the main train lines, the Yamanote line, the Chuo line, those were all built on top of rivers that were sort of reclaimed. And even then, they still are a bunch. Part of the reason Tokyo became the capital is because it's got so many rivers going to all different parts of Japan. They all sort of enter the ocean in Tokyo, which basically in the old days, before there were cars, or, that was basically the main way to transport goods. So Tokyo was just a very easy place to distribute and access and transport. So as a result, Tokyo, even when I arrived in 1999, I used to live in Nakano, and there was a river out there that would flood. Every time there was a proper rainstorm, it would flood. And that was partly why they made this cathedral, they call it, this enormous underground sort of water storage and flood control system. And they activated it. They used it to take all the runoff from Tokyo, and there's a video of them releasing all the stored water that they took from all the floods in Tokyo. That said, the rain was so intense that the drain system couldn't take the water away fast enough. So there were cases in places like Shinjuku of like manholes exploding and shooting water geysers up into the air and manholes up into the air and so on. So it was pretty crazy. But yeah, still good to be in a city that's thinking ahead for these sorts of things. I don't think many cities are thinking this far ahead, but Tokyo at least can handle the current foreseeable floods that we're getting, even though we have to keep readjusting what's foreseeable. Believe in yourself. Nice to have you there in the chat. Good to see you. Interesting one here. Spoon and Tamago pointing out Japan gets a lot of negative press for their lack of mental health support, but this chart tells a different story in terms of beds per capita. Or beds per 100,000 residents. America is a little bit behind. This may be true. Japan may have more psychiatric beds per 100,000 residents, 269. I don't know that they're being used or that the treatment they get is necessarily as good as in other places, but it is indeed good to see at least the facilities are there. Yeah, Dan H, I think we've done a 2.5. Have we? I don't want to say this and be wrong, but Ninja Monkey probably years ago now, but I'm pretty sure we did a 2.5 Voyages with you, right? Always happy to do that actually, but yeah. If we haven't done one, we certainly should have. 2.5 Voyages is a good format for that actually as well, because Victor always has more interesting questions than me. Oh, I've lost my place. Let's come back. Yes, indeed. Coming back into here, the links for tonight, including the after party, of course, immediately after this at 11:30 with another new technically perfect setup, which of course will have no problems. And Tokyo Tonight, which we're talking about right now. Interesting one here. This person tweeting that Japan in 1983, for coffee drinkers, most people, 61% had lattes, they had with milk, and 9.5% had black. And over the years, the percentage of people drinking coffee black has gone up to 46.9%, and people having lattes. What is the number there? I can't see a number for lattes. but it's definitely gone down, probably less than 20%. Which both being interesting and this person pointing out Japan is 100% on the right way. I like milk. I like dairy products. I'm from a dairy producing country. As you know, I'm very passionate about my dairy products. I drink latte. I didn't drink coffee till I was 30. I've often said this before. I was given medical orders to stop drinking Republican for late night law firm caffeine kicks. It was destroying my pancreas. So I stopped drinking Genki drinks and I switched to coffee for caffeine. And yeah, I couldn't stand drinking coffee at all. But I do drink it now almost daily, and I take it black. Like this young lady from the movie Airplane, with one of my favorite lines in that movie. But yeah, there are times I've gone all black, and if I do that, I like to have like a something sweet with it if I can. Although I try to cut down on that. But yeah, interesting. I had no idea that black coffee was actually the most popular, and it looks like they're not going back. So there you go. Cobra Stenshi, glad that you can make it. And foreshadowing here, I don't know what that means. You're also here mentally with coffee and cookies. Well, perfect there. Perfect meeting the topic. And if you want to be fitting in Japan, the stats say that you should be having that coffee black. But there you go. Up to you. Someone here, Gaiji Mummy, of course, has some kids who are definitely into trains. And someone pointing out someone has a three-dimensional map of the Tokyo subway system. This is wonderful. It is really actually interesting to see this. You can see that very prominently at the bottom of the 3D map of the Tokyo subway system is this sort of pink line, this crimson line. This is the Oedo line, which is the newest subway line in Tokyo. It was actually built after I arrived. It didn't start, I think, until 2000, or at least in full. I think it was running a few stations when I arrived. But of course, to build a new subway station and not crash into all the other subway stations, they basically had to dig the deepest. So yeah, the Oedo line is the deepest station in Tokyo, and if they build a new one in the future, they'll have to dig even deeper than that. So yeah, but it's very, very cool to see this, and just to get an idea when you're using the subway of the kind of roller coaster that you're going through. So interesting. What else have we got here? We've got apparently in the movie Armageddon, Seiko Matsuda, who was like a 1990s, 1980s pop idol and famous actress, she was like a Japanese tourist in the back of a taxi for that movie. By the way, Black Tengu in Greece always has condensed milk and stevia with coffee. That's interesting. Is that like common to have condensed milk? I think I've heard that like in Afghanistan and places like that. In fact, where was it? There's a lot of parts of the world where like condensed milk is the normal way to go. Which the idea sort of appeals to me. Obviously, in Japan, we just have regular lattes, but yeah, I've heard like I think Pakistan and a lot of Muslim countries, they'll actually have the sweet condensed milk as the sweet thing, which I'd like to try it. Sounds really good. But anyway, yeah, we're talking the other week about the Kurdish community in Kawaguchiko. There is a kind of consistent the online sort of trolls, the right-wing nationalist trolls, do make a constant sort of theme of portraying Kawaguchi and the very still limited number of Kurdish refugees or people seeking refugee visas that have aggregated in Kawaguchiko as being sort of troublemakers. And they put a lot of fake information online, implying that there's riots and anarchy and so on. And it's in fact to the point that where the city's been welcoming and the community's been doing quite well there, it's people from outside of Kawaguchi. This week, the mayor of Kawaguchi was actually threatened by a right winger, like death threats, for saying that he would continue supporting the community there, which. It's kind of crazy, and again, it's small and it's fringe, but you can't let it just sit there unchallenged. Is the lesson that the world has on this sort of thing. And yeah, the NHK covering how they actually have generated like AI pictures. For example, this is a fake picture with people holding up a sign saying Japanese people all get out of Kawaguchi City. Which is a fake AI generated picture and so on, but the sort of thing is being sent around in certain sort of far right circles. Again, these circles are small, but remember Japan has 126 million people, so and there's always going to be a few people like this, but of course on the internet they can have a loud voice, and so yeah, actually media and government groups are trying to address this anyway. Denmark saying you have regular milk there in Denmark, as I'd expect, being a famous dairy country, but most people just drink black coffee. You just want the kick. Absolutely makes sense. Kerberos Tenchi, condensed milk is also used for Vietnamese coffee. That makes sense. I love Vietnamese coffee now that you mention it. And actually kopi tea from Indonesia and Singapore as well, I also like. So yeah, I think you might be onto something there. Shubhas, I'm glad that you can make it, and I hope that you are having a coffee. Tell me, Shubhas, do you have your coffee? How do you have your coffee? Because there was just a story earlier saying that most Japanese people now drink it black, which wasn't how they originally had it. I'm curious. Speaking of the phases of people coming into Japan, this was really interesting. So NHK features they go into talk to tourists and what brings you to Japan and what's on your phone. Again, this is NTV. This is one of the privately owned commercial TV stations. These things are almost always rigged. They're almost always fixed and set up. So from that perspective, I don't know how spontaneous this was. They probably have a talent agency, find interesting foreigners that they can introduce on the show. But apparently they spontaneously asked a British person, can you show us the photos on your phone? And he said, oh, sure, here are my photos. And his mobile phone was full of photos of toilets. And it turns out the story here is that he's a bit of a toilet nerd who actually takes photos of toilets all around the world, everywhere he goes, and rates them. In fact, they called him a toilet critic, I believe, a toilet connoisseur. And I don't know, I think I've shared before, I'll refresh you on my theory. DJ Sunny Side Up likes his women black. There we go. Always black, says Shubhas. Yeah, maybe I should. It's definitely better for you than the lattes. I like lattes, but yeah, maybe I should be joining Team Black. My theory on generations and waves in Japan. I've shared it before, but just to repeat the theory, it's that there's these generations, these waves of foreigners, particularly from Western countries, who come to Japan, and how they're sort of defined by certain characteristics, which generally they clash with the preceding and following generations, which is why certain generations of foreigners just never get along. Like all generations, there's always intergenerational clashes. And the theory goes something like in the 1940s and 50s, it was all in the 1940s it was all military occupation. It was all UN forces occupying Japan, which was followed in the 1950s by in fact 40s and 50s was military. 50s and 60s were missionaries that often came in. They were mostly, and indeed the school I went to in Fukuoka was set up by missionaries that are Christian, Catholic missionaries that arrived at that time. So you have all these sort of Christian missionaries trying to come to Japan to spread different religions. The 70s was marked by people coming here for sort of martial arts and Eastern religion, which of course, so they did. So the missionaries didn't really get along. The pacifists didn't get along with the military. And of course, the Christian missionaries didn't get along with the martial artists and the new religion hippies and so on that were coming to Japan, and vice versa. And then in the 1980s, you have the bubble when people were coming basically for easy money. They were coming to enjoy the bubble. Victor came in the sort of early 90s, I think, but the 80s, 90s when people were coming, and it was basically you could get like $5,000 a month just at an eikaiwa back in those days. It was ridiculous. And so they came for money. And then my generation from the late 90s came, where we flooded the English teaching market of people who came here pretty much just chasing girls. And it's kind of funny. Victor pointed out how New Zealanders and Australians, how we ruined the economy for teaching English because we just flooded the market and devalued it completely because we were happy just living on nothing, drinking and chasing women. So, the people who came for money, by the way, the Eastern religion people didn't like the people who came for money, but the people who came for money didn't like the people who came chasing women because we ruined the money for them. And then after us came the anime nerds. The 2000s, everybody who came to Japan suddenly was an anime nerd, which is like, kryptonite to chasing women. It's like, please stop being anime nerds. You're making us look, bad. So, of course, the people who came here just to pick up women, of course, had contempt for the anime nerds who, the anime nerds at least had a cultural interest in Japan and actually educational interest in Japan. But I don't know, this could be the new thing. It could be toilet connoisseurs. These could be the new types of nerds. Instead of coming here for the anime, they're coming here for more of the specific genre-based sort of nerdy stuff, which would be I don't know how the anime nerds would go for the toilet nerds. I don't know. To me, it still is quite respectable being like intellectually into cultural aspects of Japan. I mean, the toilets here are amazing. I can respect the toilet nerd. But I wonder, yeah. So, Crypto Airy. By the way, Crypto Airy, I watched a couple of your videos lately. I see you in the chat. I know that you've got a huge YouTube channel. I know nothing about crypto. If you want to know anything about crypto, go follow Crypto Airy's channel because that's all that she sort of talks about. That's really good. It's nice to see and say welcome to the show again. And yeah, everybody go subscribe to Crypto Area if you want to know about crypto stuff. She's actually just has a ton of information on there. So I don't know. I kind of respect this new wave of non-anime nerds who are coming to Japan who are just even deeper. So I don't know. I do. Again, never trust commercial TV stations. These interactions are never spontaneous. But I thought it was kind of funny that back in this guy came to Japan because he loves toilets and he wanted to take photos. He rates toilets, whereas I commented back in my day, most foreigners came to teach English and chase women. To which someone said, back in my day, toilets were just a hole in the ground. To which I say, oh, back in my day, we used to dream of having a hole in the ground. That's a Monty Python skit called The Four Yorkshiremen, which you should look. It's basically elderly, wealthy men bragging about how poor they were when they were children, and it's good. Gaiji Mummy not impressed. Western women would like a word. And yes, drama ensuing in the comments, but yeah, I've gotten gotten a fair bit of reaction to that. What else have we gotten here? In fact, just quickly looking back, Cobra Tenchi, you remember 2016 when you were on the show Sugoi desu ne? One of the things they pointed out as one of the most outstanding things about Japan was the toilets. I think it was about fifth in rate. It is. I mean, it's one of the reasons I can't leave. I mean, food and toilets, in and out. You just can't beat Japan in either direction. You know, from all orifices, Japan has pretty much got you covered. I've just realized all orifices. Yeah, don't think too much about that, but the answer is yes, at least if you're a dude. So there we go. Matt Elt continues to make excellent YouTube content, by the way. Of course, I've found out he actually was a TV host on NHK World, which would explain why he's such a pro at this. He was actually in America in a military museum where he actually has the flag that was first brought by Perry into Shimoda when he forced Japan to open up. And that was actually used at the signing of Japan's surrender at the end of World War II as well. But great video, great museum if you're into Japanese history. I like to joke that Perry was the first expat to move to Shimoda. Shimoda is a town at the bottom of Shizuoka, which is kind of famous that the long-term expats, people who've been around as long as me and who have actual money, often buy their holiday homes down there. It's kind of cheap because it's got such high tsunami risk that Japanese don't want to touch it down there, and it's beautiful. Yeah, anyway, the black ship story and the history associated with it, great video. Subscribe to Matt Elt, he is awesome. Yes, slow-moving storm Shanshan downgraded to tropical depression, which to me reads like slow-moving panda Shanshan downgraded due to having tropical depression. That's how it reads to me. But that's right, it is now just a storm giving us lots of lightning and rain at the moment, but what can you do? Play 2 Life Crew. Dan H, I love how you didn't rank your son or wife above food and toilets. A man knows his priorities. Well, yes, thank you, Dan. But yes, all orifices. I'm pretty sure that's on their upcoming album, their reunion tour. That would be. I don't know. Although the thing is, I mean, they could get banned in the 1980s for saying pretty much nothing, right? To get banned nowadays, I guess they'd have to. I don't know. They'd have to sing Trump slogans or something like that. You'd have to go in a different direction nowadays to get cancelled. Although I guess not that hard, I suppose. It'd just be a different thing. Apparently, the number of hotel stays, foreign hotel stays, over the last year has jumped 35%. So good for the hotel business, although it does mean that costs are going up. If you are a tourist coming to Japan, Ninja Monkey, tell everybody this: don't be a dick. Don't be an asshole. Do not be a dickhead. Do not be one of those people in Shibuya walking around with open cans, throwing rubbish everywhere. You are allowed to drink in public in Japan. There are even vending machines that sell alcohol in the street. And this is great. But the reason we have it here in Japan is because we don't, I mean, of course, there are homeless people and there are salarymen and there are people who you see passed out in the street and so on, but not many. And when they do it in a way that doesn't make trouble for anyone else, relatively, most of the time. But when you have like floods and hordes of highly visible foreigners walking around, drinking and dropping litter around because there's no rubbish bins and they're drunk and they don't care anymore, they've turned Shibuya. Shibuya really is. The last couple of times I've been back there, it's particularly like got more litter now. It never has been a clean, nice part of Tokyo, but it's gotten particularly grotty and full of rubbish. And again, it's not the cynic might say, if you're defending the people walking around drinking, the Shibuya government going against foreigners drinking in the street is partly that all the shop owners want the people there to be doing what Japanese people generally do, which is to go drinking in the actual establishments there, the izakaya and the bars and stuff like that. So they're getting drunk and they're not even spending money there. They're just going to the convenience stores, buying the cheapest drinks, drinking in the street and getting drunk. But yeah, there's even a video today showing two gangs of foreigners fighting in Shibuya. So basically, with all this sort of antisocial behavior that's increasingly highly visible, the littering, the fights, as well as, and tourists sort of taking advantage of the fact that you can drink to sort of take it so far that now they're taking it away. They're going to start banning um, public drinking even from tourists. And it's just, this is why we can't have nice things. It's why you can't have public drinking in America or New Zealand or Australia. And they come to Japan and they say, oh, you can do that here in Japan. Let's ruin it for them. And they do. And I don't, part of the reason I came to Japan was because I think the drinking culture here, while it has problems like all drinking cultures inherently have, it's better here than it is back where I'm from, where people just binge drink and take advantage of every sort of liberty given. They'll max it out until you can't have it anymore. And that seems to be what's happening. So, yeah, do us a favor. Even if you're just here for a few days and you don't care, those of us who have to stay here have to put up with the consequences of what visible foreigners do. And you're sort of ruining it, and you're not just ruining it for us, you're ruining it for Japanese people and the tourists who come after you. And that's kind of what's happened here, which is a little bit sad. So I'm actually in favor of the crackdown because, otherwise they're not going to get the message. So, yeah. Hotel staff are stuffing with being understaffed and paid. Indeed, although they're also increasing charges that they're doing at the hotels. So hopefully capitalism will sort it out, but we'll see. Black Tingu, Shibuya looks like a tip on a weekend. Certain parts of it really do, which is sad. I mean, Shibuya is going through a big reconstruction at the moment with some big fancy new buildings. So who knows? It'll hopefully get nicer at the end of it all. But right now, I have no reason to get off the train there. It's too crowded anyway. And so, yeah. And as Cobra said, she says, always a few that ruins it for everyone else. And this is it. It's like with apartments as well, badly behaved. Back in the days, most of the foreigners here weren't tourists. They were here, teaching English or whatever. There wasn't much international tourism. And this thing was people renting apartments and not separating the rubbish and stuff would get all future foreigners banned from the buildings, and often from people who didn't care, And now it's the same with tourists as well. There's another theme here about tourist management that there is a problem. The government hasn't really tried to make sure that the tourists spread out and actually enjoy all of Japan. They're just going to a few places, which leave those places like impossible for anyone to use. Kyoto being the prime example. And Shibuya as well. I don't know. There's tons of places better than Shibuya to go to anyway. And overcrowding it like this and doing this sort of thing just makes it, terrible. Indeed, think of the poor average salaryman who can no longer get drunk in public. Well, yeah, they'll all go to Shimbashi. That's where they're all hanging out. I don't know. Seriously, Ninja Monkey, if you want to tell people where to go and get drunk in public, tell them to go to Shimbashi. I would appreciate if you're a tourist and you insist on drinking in public. The Japanese tradition is to get drunk in Shimbashi. Because honestly, I find the Japanese salarymen public drunkenness in Shimbashi to be obnoxious. So maybe if enough foreigners go there, they'll crack down on it there and they'll actually clean up Shimbashi. Not that I have any reason to go there anymore, but I used to work near there actually. So yeah, I remember that. Marco 19914 in Estonia, it is illegal to drink in public, but it is only prosecuted when public drinking causes problems, which sounds like a sensible way to go about it. To be precise, it is illegal to hold an open alcoholic beverage container in public, and it is not in Japan. And closed is fine. I mean, that seems like a fairly mature rule. Of course, in Estonia, I presume that it'd be vodka, which would be the drink of choice there. I know it's totally different to Russia. I know it's more finished, but it gets cold there, right? So I can also understand how when you have problems with alcohol, they become serious problems. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe this nice age of Japan being able to, and Japan, while Japan is, definitely has problems, you can definitely contradict that Japan has drinking problems. At the same time, you can sit in Yoyogi Park with 300,000 drunk people during Hanami and there's no fights. You don't need police. In New Zealand, you have 20 drunk people and you need, 50 riot police. So yeah, you get all of that. Pointing out, didn't Chris open a bar in Shibuya recently? He did. It's a bar called Lost. It's in a really nice part of Shibuya as well. And actually, I haven't been along there yet, but I'd love to go along there and check it out. I did mention it last week. You're a bit distracted last week. That is fine, Ida. Yeah, and good on him. It is near the parts of Shibuya that have the problems, but of course, Shibuya is a big place. So, yes, indeed. Vodka, indeed. So, I mean, the fact that they let you walk around with vodka, so long as you got the cap on it, I think that's a reasonable compromise. That does still sound, it sounds more mature than, for example, in America or Australia or New Zealand, where we have terrible, just stupid, like, at least when people overdrink vodka in, in Eastern Europe, they'll drink themselves to death and be done with it. Whereas in New Zealand and Australia and America, they're just stupid, college students getting drunk on light beer and just being dickheads. It's there's nothing good about it. So yeah. Anyway, what are we all sipping on? I'm having. I could say this is vodka, but I'd be dead by now. H2O, H2O. So yeah, moving on. 11:12. There was a big drama this week. I mentioned it in the titles. Rural wife bribes. So apparently, the Japanese government came up with a scheme to give Japanese women 600,000 yen, which equates to about 4,000 US dollars right now. In normal times, about 5,000 US dollars. They will pay women $5,000 to go to a country town, to move from a city to a country town and marry a rural man. And they announced this. And 2 days later, and I thought it was funny, and I was thinking of the 1980s movie Green Card, starring Gerard Depardieu. Where basically it's a movie, it's a comedy love story where basically a French chef, as part of a visa fraud scheme, enters into an arranged sort of business relationship with a university student who is basically getting married and presenting themselves as a legitimate marriage to American immigration for him to be able to get a green card. Classic old movie. It doesn't get reruns, probably because it's promoting extremely illegal behavior. But I was sort of thinking, if you want to make a quick 600,000 yen, you could just arrange to do one of these marriages and collect the subsidy and make a business out of it, especially because divorce is just a city council form in Japan. However, there were more problems than that, and that led to this whole idea being reclaimed and cancelled 2 days later. Some people pointing out, why are you just paying women for moving to rural towns? And what if it's same-sex marriage? And why not pay men? And, isn't this regressive and old-fashioned and sexist? And, this is what's wrong with the Japanese government. And they said, all right, the whole idea is off. We're not gonna pay women to go marry, farmers. So yeah, many problems with this, but it was a nice idea. It wasn't even a nice idea. It was a terrible idea while it lasted. It's rare that you have a Japanese idea so bad that even the government changes its mind about it like so quickly. Some people know the movie. There we go. Lara knows the movie. Yeah. It's a cool. I haven't watched it like an embarrassing number of years. I mean, it must be more than 40 years since I've seen it. No, well, 30 something years anyway, but it's still horrible. Mostly drink beer, 5%. Okay. Oh, so it sounds like you're drinking like a more like Western. Wouldn't say European, but yes, like people are. I don't know what it is with beer. Beers and ciders. Okay, I'm a cider fan myself. I'm not much of a beer fan, honestly. I mean, I don't drink that much at all. I don't not drink, but if I drink, I like to drink something like that I like the taste of, and I don't like beer, but I do like cider. So respect to the Estonian ciders there, Marco. Anyway, yeah, in Japan, Ministry of Health says that over 10% of Japanese people gained weight during the COVID pandemic. that's a much lower number than most foreigners that I talk to anyway seem to universally say that they put on weight during the pandemic. They just became less active and they sat at home and sort of drank alcohol and ate more. Most people I know, anecdotally, I hear more stories of people talking about how they gained weight during the pandemic, but apparently no. The majority of Japanese people took up exercise. But worryingly to the Ministry of Health, 10%, over 10% of people gain weight. Personally, I lost 10 kilograms. I took up my running habit. So I followed the Japanese kind of pattern of, basically as mental health, but also physical health, trying to improve my health by exercising. So, yeah, I aced my Kenko Shindan for the first time ever after the pandemic. But it turns out 10% of Japanese people put on weight. They don't have how these stats compare to other countries, but I would say Japan, even though, of course, the Ministry of Health doesn't want anybody gaining weight, they've actually identified the metabolic syndrome crisis in Japan. Nothing compared to, again, most Western countries, but they've identified it as, please do not become people from those countries that we won't say the names of, but you know what they are. Where everybody's getting fat. So, they're basically fighting obesity because they know that it incurs, because the Japanese government pays so much provides basically free healthcare to everybody. They don't want people getting fat people diseases. They don't want to be paying for everybody to have, heart surgeries, organ transplants, and diabetes treatments. The Japanese government actually cares about making sure that people have health checkups, and they measure the stomachs and they say, don't let that stomach get any more than 85 centimeters, which is brutal, because otherwise you're going to cost the country more money in health subsidies, and we can't afford it. So, kind of tough, kind of actually amazing in a way. I would say this is a positive result, although it's being shown in a negative way. So there you go. Yeah, Japan drops the plan to subsidize women, and here I was about to pitch a kind of Japanese remake of the movie Green Card. It would be a great movie idea, actually, to remake Green Card as people trying, a love story of people trying to rip off the rural marriage subsidy scheme. I mean, seriously, you could actually make a really good remake of that movie from that. They should totally do that. That's a desperation stereotype there. Oh yeah, that sounds horrible. Black Tengu also lost weight during COVID. Too scared to go shopping in the super. Okay, that's another bad way. So not through improving health, but eating less as well. There we go. Ida lost weight during the pandemic. Took up exercise. Open water swimming wasn't policed. Okay, so they policed how far you could go away from your house, but not if you tried swimming towards Sweden. That's pretty good. Open water swimming actually in Denmark. I have so many questions. Isn't it cold? I mean, I can see all the ways that you would lose weight that way. So yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Lara has a classmate from 2007 who's married to a Japanese man for the green card. That is funny and sad at the same time. But because remember in the movie, it was, I mean, spoiler alert for a 45-year-old movie, but yeah, a 35-year-old movie. Of course, the whole idea was it starts out as a scam, but they actually fall in love in the course of doing the scam. I won't spoil the ending. It's a good movie. You should look it up and go watch it if it's available anywhere. And the U.S. Immigration Service hasn't started banning it from broadcast. It's cold. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, it would be cold. I mean, that's basically. I mean, the Vikings are not famous for open water swimming. I mean, God, if they could open water swim, the extra damage that would have been done to the to the UK and France. So there you go. Cobras Tenshi ate less during the pandemic and you gained weight. Oh, that's wow. That's the worst of all choices. Mostly because unhealthy food is cheap, and when you live out, yeah, I get that. I tried for a time when I was originally getting bad scores on my health checkup. I'd go to the convenience stores and I would do a 300 yen diet. I would control my volume by just setting myself a monetary limit on what food I would get, and it was kind of funny because I could get surprisingly large amounts of processed food for 300 yen. And for some reason, I didn't get skinny. I had the same experience as you. So I learned, yeah, this is the thing. To eat healthy food, like fresh vegetables and fresh meat, is more expensive than eating processed foods. So there's something wrong with that. Capitalism, there needs to be some way to process, to price in crap. You know how they price in carbon into energy? Like you have to pay carbon taxes if you cause, the societal wrong of increasing carbon dioxide to make those energy sources not so cheap. They need to do that with food, honestly. I really think that, if something's over processed and cancer causing and fattening, there should be like a tax, and they should take the tax money that they add on to the charges of those potato chips and use it to subsidize to make healthy food cheaper. Bit of a Stalinist approach, I know, but sometimes for all topics not related to agriculture and dairy products, Stalinism can be okay. But who knows? But definitely, I learned the same lesson as you, Sanchi. And the Ministry of Health wants people to work 4 days a week. They're saying, look at Microsoft, look at Panasonic, they can do it. The thing is, the Ministry of Health itself is famous for having, and ironically, not even ironically, just brutally hypocritically, the Ministry of Health, Labor, Welfare's own labor enforcement division that polices unpaid overtime and overwork conditions and working to death itself became famous within the government for having the highest rate of working to death and overwork because of all the overwork in the country, and they had to police it. The people who were like policing it themselves overworked, the irony. So they're telling everyone work 4 days, but they are the last part of the Japanese government. Nowhere in the Japanese government is actually leading by example, and the last part that will be the Minister of Labor. But I do like the idea of a 4-day work, and the theory is that you're not working less, you're working the same. Instead of having 5 8-hour days, you have 4 10-hour days. You work 2 hours more in those days, but then you have 3 days off in which you go and spend money and stimulate the economy. So you increase consumption by giving people more leisure time. And it's so far, most studies show that people on those 4 days get more work done, and they can contribute to the economy. It's a good idea. But yeah, the Japanese government is saying do it, but don't do what we do. So there you go. Another problem in Osaka, apparently in the prefectural offices of Osaka, more bureaucrats getting tortured. They turn off the aircon to save money. They set the aircon to 28 degrees Celsius, which, by the way, is already too high. 28 degrees Celsius, I sweat mildly, and it's kind of muggy and whatever. But then at 6:30 p.m., they turn off the aircon. And so there's pictures on social media of people working like past 6:30 p.m. doing instead of mandatory overtime, and the office is 31 degrees, 33 degrees and humid, and they're being forced to work in it. So yeah. I work in a building myself where I recently complained that they don't turn on the aircon to 8:30, and sometimes I have to go in for early calls, and I'm like, geez, you can turn on the aircon a little bit earlier so that the building's not an inferno when we have to do the early calls. But there you go. Same thing with the Osaka government. So not being that friendly with all that. Unrested, old time Jvlogger. He's been sort of back lately. He came back to Japan temporarily. He's back in Florida at the moment, making videos, nostalgic videos about old-timey YouTube in Japan, talking about Canada Jin 3-san and all these other sort of old YouTube channels. He's did a video. Was it today or maybe yesterday? But I watched it today, called Japan Vlogging. Will it return? Jvlogging. Is it over? Hat tip to Unrested for mentioning that there are some people who still do Jvlogging, to which he mentioned Give Me a Break Man, myself, and Tikyo Sam. The triumvirate of Jvlogging that is still continuing. He has a number of theories on why it's worth watching the video. Go check out the channel. He's back. He's doing what he always does. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he said, but I think when Jvlogging was sort of at its peak, YouTube was much more of a social network. It was actually, there were video replies. It was there was a lot of community based interaction. It was a way, when you came to Japan, of getting to meet other people. There were the YouTube Hanami, the YouTube Summer Party. We had lots of YouTube events. It was a way to get to know people, and we were all figuring out and sharing information on how to make videos. It was a social activity. I think it's kind of ironic now that social media isn't that social anymore. It's really become much more of an individual, and it's partly YouTube that's done this. It's taken out the social features, and it sort of has provided information now that most creators now are individual creators. So this idea of doing it as a way to meet people and connect with people is a bit old-fashioned, as well as the fact that most foreigners who come to Japan, even people who love Japan, vast majority leave within 3 years. So, the people who were university students, they graduated and moved on. And for whatever reasons, particularly the pandemic and so on, people who are coming in now, and it was more unusual to come to Japan in those days. There were people interested in it, which is why people would watch this. But now there's like 36 million tourists coming a year. So the idea of, it's kind of funny. You'd think with more and more people coming to Japan that my channel would be getting more views. And it's not. It's just the same people as always. It's it's becoming in the same way that you don't really, you might be interested in a trip to Fiji, but you won't necessarily subscribe to a channel about Fijian news and politics before you go on your vacation there. Japan's becoming kind of a tourist spot, and I'm okay. You, Unrested insists that people won't make content if it doesn't get views. I'm happy with the views that I get, and the views have fallen, but I'm happy to have the company doing what I enjoy. That's my philosophy on it. And I enjoyed my channel when it had 10 viewers, and I enjoyed pretty much that. In fact, in some ways, it was more exciting even back then, because it was all new. So I'm happy with the views that I have, and I think I'm sincere that I'd do it with less views. Although he said nobody would ever do it for less views. But I've been here when it's been quiet. But will it come back? I don't think so, because I think everything is becoming sadly less social. I think it would be great to if somehow AI or whatever, if we can turn things around and increase connection, because I feel like the decrease in human connection is a big part of all the problems we're seeing in the world right now. But I feel like that's the trend, and I think that AI and automation is going to create a world where you'll feel like you'll need to interact with people less. Everything will be curated just for you. That'll be a bit sad. And honestly, I think there's someone points out, DJ Sunny Side Up, they're talking about mental health. I think human interaction is really important for human health, and so I'm quite happy for mental health. I think that's you're probably talking about the pandemic there, but I'm very happy with how things are going along. I don't think it's coming back. I would love for it to come back. I'd love for there to be a community again. Zach is still there, not really making videos anymore, but he still hangs out with people from the community. I've run into him a couple of times. I'd love to do the old big YouTube parties and stuff like that again, but it's a different world now, and that's fine. I'm still here. I was here when there was no one here before. I was here when it was big, and I'm here when it's a smaller but much cooler group of people, as you all are. So thank you for keeping me company, of course. We are still on topics from 5 hours ago, and we've got 2 minutes left, and we've got the rest of the week to cover, so time to speed up. Moto Azabu Hills, a very old but cool looking building. It's kind of shaped like this. You can see there, it kind of comes out. I've had dinner there once. The apartments there are worth $5 million. They used to be worth like $800,000. I've had dinner there once, and it was a nice building. I don't know if it was $5 million nice, but it was pretty nice. I made a mix earlier in the week. 2 stories here. I got it. Oh, I actually had to deal with a bit of a. There are a couple of trolls, and my policy is I just don't engage with trolls. And I realize that I'm not like Victor. I don't need to understand the human behind the troll. If you're just going to always leave cynical or negative comments on everything that I post, you do you, I'll do me, fine. So I mute a few people, but I decided to try to interact with a negative commenter against these who said I was just trying to make Japan look bad. And I actually tried responding yesterday, and that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But I tried having a conversation with someone who is actually an interesting person, and who I respect in some ways, even though I mute him because I just can't deal with his bullshit. But yeah, there were just 2 stories. I just found this funny, that a news story, corrupt LDP politician who says he is ex-LDP because he quit when he was indicted for criminal corruption, faces ban on running for office. And then the next story, in unrelated news, a corrupt LDP politician who media says is ex-LDP because she quit when she was indicted, is indicted without arrest for salary fraud. The LDP is full of corrupt politicians. This is why Kishida is not popular. It's why the LDP is sort of tanking at the moment. It's because there have been so many LDP government members who have been prosecuted for criminal political fraud. And I think that the fact that there were 2 stories on the same day, basically with the same line, both characterizing them as ex-LDP because they had just quit to sort of just as they were about to be cuffed. When this is the nature of the LDP, that they're corrupt. So there we go. Ian Macaulay, good to see you, and super fast indeed. So LDP corruption. The All Blacks coach is coming to coach Toyota. Toyota is an awesome team, but they didn't perform as well as they should have. But now they're getting the ex-All Blacks coach, which I think is going to make them awesome. Can't wait for that. We got beaten by South Africa this morning. It was a great game. It was a great game, but we got beaten last minute. Crazy. But anyway. Japan cyclists to be punished for riding drunk. Japan is surprisingly soft. Again, like drinking in public, you can also cycle drunk. It was only criminalized a year ago, but with no penalties. But the penalties start taking effect soon. In news not relating to tourists, the birth rate here dropped to 350,000, which is the lowest ever. Korean cars look cool nowadays. Yoon says that vows that cooperation will continue even when the Japanese prime minister changes, which is great. But the problem isn't Japan here. there's no changing of leader resulting in changes in Korean relationships. It's always the Korean side that's the problem. I would like an assurance that when Yoon leaves as Korean president, that Japan and Korea can still be friends, which unfortunately is not the case. I really would love to talk about this, but we're a minute over time. But yeah, there is a TikTok thing where basically they could be getting prosecuted because their algorithm recommended a blackout challenge, which led to a child to asphyxiate themselves. And there's a suggestion that they should be accountable for their algorithm where they are promoting and deliberately sharing content targeted at people that results in this, that they should be liable. And I'm sympathetic to that, even as a tech lawyer. Yeah, I think that's a good argument. All of these things. Are the tourists, this was another big one this week. Are tourists eating all of Japan's rice? The answer is no. This is backed up by former agriculture. I could go into a whole butter rant here, but I will not. Maybe remind me about this next week. But the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, predicting the declining population, declining need for rice, has been telling farmers de-acre. They've had a de-acreage policy where they're telling people to convert crops, their rice crops, into other crops. And they've been promoting this over years. And now that there's been this big shortage of rice, they just miscalculated it. And they're blaming tourists, saying that they're eating all the rice, which is stupid. But basically, it's the ministry covering up their own bad mismanagement of Japanese agriculture, which is just like the butter. They dictate how much rice gets grown, and they got the numbers wrong. They miscalculated, and there's a shortage. So all of that stuff. And yes, great satellite photo of Tokyo. I can see where my house is on this. I love how clear the map is. It's great to fly over at night as well. Another good reason to come to Japan. We had a big typhoon this week. As you can see, typhoon number 10. It was terrible down in Kyushu, but it seems to be pretty much over now. And that is it. That is it. I am already 2 minutes over, so I am going to wrap it up. But it's been a big week. And yeah, thank you always for keeping me company. LDP have been corrupt since their founding. I mean, their founding basically was they were a CIA-planted party to stop the communists winning the elections here in the 1950s, which they sort of succeeded at. So all of that. Oh yeah, all the dolphin attacks. There's been a whole bunch of dolphin attacks off Fukui, which itself reeked of being maybe the dolphins getting revenge for the dolphin hunting in Wakayama or something, but they've been attacking swimmers. It turns out that it may be the work of one dolphin, which I think would be a great movie idea. So all of these things. Martin Shkreli must have read his Wu-Tang Clan album copies that it turns out he totally ripped copies of and gave to women who would have sex with him. Cash rules everything around him. That is the show. That is the show. I'm going to go sit up on the new, indeed, Revenge of Flipper, kind of a Flipper Jaws hybrid movie. There's got to be a good movie idea in there somewhere. I'm going to set up my new setup. If it works, I'm going to get out the action camera and show my new DJ setup, which was pretty awesome. So go check out the stream. It's on my channel. So just go to my channel page and you'll be able to see the after party live stream. In fact, it might even be here. I think it's here. It's here. Hang on a sec. Channel content, details. Boom. That's not it. Okay. In fact, I can. Let me share the link in the chat. Copy. And over here, boom, boom, boom. Check me out for the after party. You can pick tracks. I'm going to pick some tracks myself. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Don't get caught in typhoons or anything like that. Remember, have your disaster pack already. Follow me on Twitter, all of that good stuff. And I will see you all next week. Have a good week, everybody. And thanks always for keeping me company. And I appreciate all the great comments as always. Boom. Remember to like as well. That's what I'm doing it for. See you later. Have a good week, everybody. Peace. Any string.